And many people at home will be hoping that the new year will bring many changes.
Will 2022 eventually be the year that we leave COVID behind and begin a full recovery?
Well, to share his thoughts on what 2022 might bring, we're joined now by GBNews host Neil Oliver. Neil, Happy New Year. A very good morning to you. Thanks for speaking to us. Really appreciate it. You spoke in your Christmas message about signs of hope. So what signs of hope do you have for 2022?
Oh, well, Happy New Year to both of you. It's good to be with you. It was nice to be mindful last night that I was due to be on television at 9 a.m. So it made me take more care of myself than I might otherwise have done. So it's good to be with you both. I think we have to be hopeful. It's a choice that we can make. You can either be hopeful or not in the face of challenging times. And I sometimes think that when things seem bleakest, that can be, or darkest, that can be the very moment when it's important to deliberately. It's like putting a smile on your face when you don't feel particularly cheerful. Eventually, just the action of smiling lifts your spirits, and I think you have to be hopeful. And I think my primary hope, is that people are in increasing numbers realising the power and the influence that they actually have. It's easy to think in a global population of whatever, nearly 8 billion people, that an individual's thoughts and actions don't matter, that we're like drops in the ocean. But on the contrary, I think every action by each one of us is important and can make the difference. And I think that the process of the last, whatever it is, nearly 2 years, I think has awoken many people to the idea that, you don't have to wait for a general election or to exercise your opinion via the ballot box. The act of standing up and speaking truthfully and honestly when you think that something is wrong and needs to be corrected, I think more and more people have accepted that and awoken to that. And it's that, more than anything else, that gives me hope for 2022.
Neil, Happy New Year to you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I was actually working here on Christmas Day and we played your Christmas message a lot, and it did so well in the inbox, just people getting in touch to say that they really resonated with what you were saying about 2021 being really hard for lots of families. I mean, you touched upon it, being separated from families. Lots of people had a really tough year. And there was a sense from you that you weren't going to allow that to happen again. You wanted to be with your family because I think you said that's where you felt that's where you belonged. Is that something that you're definitely looking forward to in 2022?
Oh, 100%. I haven't so far allowed anything in terms of government diktat to separate me from anyone that I wanted to be with, I'm quite happy to declare that. I've always been of the opinion that it was right and proper that I be with the people that needed me and that I needed, and I'll continue to do that. And I think I have thought from the beginning that the isolation of people, especially the way in which elderly people in care homes were isolated from the connections to family that were like a blood supply to them. That isolation, I think, was bordering on the criminal. It was so cruel, and that so many people found themselves cut off from and isolated from loved ones for all manner of reasons, and that people went through, say, events, festival like Christmas Day alone, because they, in inverted commas, weren't allowed to be with loved ones, appalled me, way beyond any other consideration. I just thought and think that doing that to people is immoral, and much bigger brains than mine have said that there are times when where there are bad laws, it's our moral obligation to disobey them and to disregard them. And I would live and die by that thought. But I don't want, today of all days, I as I said in that message at Christmas, I don't want to just look back and just to wallow in the all of the unhappiness that there has been. I think this process sparked by COVID, I'm hopeful that it will bring about a fundamental change to society. I think we're way overdue for a change. I'm not talking here about some revolution. It's really just about all of us thinking differently and having a different perception of how we fit into the bigger picture. I had as a guest on one of my very recent shows Robert Malone, the American doctor who holds 9 of the patents for the mRNA technology, and I had him on and we spoke that he was cancelled, put away from Twitter, dropped by Twitter within days of Tony Blair being knighted. I think those two facts for me, those two events coming within days of one another, just further underline to me that something, to me, is badly out of kilter, badly out of step with our establishment and with those who rule over us, be it government, big media, big tech, big pharma. I think there's something badly adrift there when a voice like Robert Malone's is deliberately silenced by one of the big platforms at the same time as a figure, as divisive as Tony Blair is knighted. Here we are, the first day of a new year, and you might say that from the establishment's point of view, it seems that nothing has changed and it's business as usual. Well, I just don't accept that. And I think that, and I'm excited and inspired by the fact that I know of, and I'm in contact with so many people who have awoken to the idea that a change must come, and that we must demand better, we must demand more honesty, freedom of speech, freedom of expression from those above us, and I genuinely feel fired up and inspired by that.
Do you think that sense of empowerment, though, comes from? And do you think that sometimes perhaps people feel too empowered and perhaps go too far? We saw some anti-vax protesters storming, I think it was a vaccination centre or a testing centre in Milton Keynes this week. Do you think some people take it too far, that sense of empowerment, which is important?
Yeah, I never advocate violence. And there are all kinds of violence and there's all kinds of cruelty. And we're seeing it in the way that some protests are being allowed and encouraged, and other protests are being discouraged and chased off of the streets. But I deplore violence. I've never been involved in anything physically violent in my life, and I never intend to be. The blanket description of people as anti-vaxxers, I just don't accept. There are so many people, vaccinated people amongst them, who still acknowledge that something is wrong with the way in which voices are being silenced. People are feeling increasingly coerced. Around the world, that people are being encouraged to take vaccination by anything up to and including getting, that brothel in Austria that was offering 30 minutes with the woman of your choice to men who would accept the vaccine, putting therefore women on a par with the burgers and the kebabs and the lottery tickets that were also being offered as inducements to take that. Now, people standing up on their hind legs, vaccinated or not, and saying that there are many, many parts of what is going on at the moment that are unforgivably wrong. To just blanket all of those people as, inverted commas, anti-vaxxers, I think is wrong. The people are opposed to a whole broad spectrum of measures that have been taken to drive a narrative. There's been government-sponsored propaganda. Hundreds of millions of pounds have been spent on the media to have the media, push a narrative as though it's absolute fact and the only narrative to be believed, when it isn't. It's just one side of an argument. All manner of efforts have been made to silence the debate, the other sides of that argument, and all of that is unspeakably and unforgivably wrong. But
Neil,
in answer to your question, I never would take part in, and I don't encourage anything violent. No, absolutely
no.
not.
And I totally see where you're coming from, because I know plenty of people who haven't had the jab and who do feel coerced continually, and perhaps it's time to just stop that conversation and just accept that some people aren't going to have it and respect that right. But we really appreciate
Yes, I think so. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well, Neil.
Too.